Hi everybody and welcome back to my modeling channel. Tonight we're gonna discover a Superjet 100 from Zvezda on scale 144. So let's open the box and see what we have inside. So we're gonna start with the decals this time. The decal sheet is pretty straightforward. A couple of things regarding the basically you have the possibility of doing only the aeroflot scheme, and you have also a couple of panels that and basically details that you will be able to fit on the engines. But a usual standard Zvezda decal sheet. Now let's move on to the instruction sheet. So it's in two parts, pretty straightforward. You have the decal sheets and then you have a list of all the parts on your kit. So for this one, mainly you have a stand, so you could do it airborne or on the ground, and you have the options of putting the gear up or down, but no oleo struts or those options that you have on some more sophisticated kits. And then on the back you have all the instructions for the paint and the covers. So now let's move on to the kit itself. As most of the Zvezda kit come, you have the possibility of they always come with a stand, but I'm not gonna use this one for this time. We have a clear part. They are pretty soft clear parts, and I might not use it this time. I will just fill them up with putty. So let's move on to the kit itself. Pretty straightforward little kit. As usual with Zvezda, panel lines are very fine and engraved inside the plastic, which make my life simpler, I have to say, and it's a pretty decent little kit, as you may see one of my previous review as well. So the second sprue, we have the fuselage, which is in both parts. You have the engines, the horizontal fin, and the engine with the fan. Everything has been very well detailed, and I have to say it's a very pleasant kit to work with. So we're gonna see how this come out later on. So for that kit, I'm gonna try to do some extra stuff this time. I'm gonna add some photo etch part for that aircraft. So they are coming with the instruction sheet, and as you can see here, we're gonna review that together. So we have the options on that one to make all the antennas basically, and I have to say that the instruction sheet is very nicely done. Self-explanations, and lots of little antennas that you can put on the fuselage itself. So it's going to be a really easy work to do. All the gear doors as well, and the probes, and you'll have the possibility to do the engine fan. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to do it this time. Might give it a try, but I'll see how it turned out first. And of course some more details on the struts for the undercarriage. So a very nice little extra detail. And I will use, this time I will work with a brand that I haven't worked with so far. It's called Revaro or Revaro. And basically what they are doing is I'm gonna do the red livery, Redwings decal livery. So it might be a bit of a challenge because the white part of that decal seems to be very light, but I'll still give it a try, of course. And but I have to say that the window and the cockpit window seems to be very nice and well detailed. So we're gonna see how this come out in a minute, and enough of talking, and let's start building. So we're gonna start initially this model by preparing the wings. So for this I'll have to cut the wings and prepare basically the plastic. There is not much to do because the mold is in very good quality. So after that, of course, we're gonna glue the wings together, and we're gonna let them dry for a little while. So while the glue will be drying on the wings, I will be able to work on the fuselage. So initially I'll have to prepare the fuselage, and then I will cut, and on this model I will fill up the windows, and I will fill all the gaps with some putty. Of course, I'll have to put some extra weight on the front of the aircraft, otherwise it will sit on its tail, and for this I use modeling paste. After that I will put the nose wheel well, and I will glue it, and then after that we'll be able to glue our fuselage together. So when this will be completed, the next step would normally be to prepare the cockpit window, and of course I will put it on the fuselage, and once it will be done I will fill this up, and I will fill all the gaps with putty, as this time I'm going to use some window decals for the cockpit and the main passenger window. So once the putty has dried out, it will be time to do a little bit of sanding, and as you know, this is quite a big part of the modeling process. Fill up all the gaps and then sand them down to have a really smooth surface. So for this I use various sandpaper, and I normally do the finish with an abrasive sponge that I've been using for quite a while, and those ones are made in Korea. So after that I saw that there was some irregular surface and things I could work a little bit better, so I use a normal file, and then again when I managed to get the proper shape, then I'm using this abrasive sponge to get a better, a smoother surface. So after that, of course, it's time to sand down the extra putty on the wings, and especially on the junction between the upper and lower part. After that we will put the wings and glue the wings to the fuselage itself, and of course after that it will require to dry a little bit, and then I have to use some clamp as there was a little gap between the junction. After that I had some issues on the cockpit window, so I had to put some extra putty. Once the wings were dried, then I had to fill all the gaps with some extra putty as well, and then I will have to let it dry for a little while, and again I'll have to do some sanding work on all those joints. So I'm now doing the finish sanding, and I'm trying to have a really smooth surface for that aircraft. So after that, as some of the putty fill up some of the panel lines, I had to rescribe them. So for this I'm using normally a rescribing tool and also some razor blade saw. After that I had to add and to smooth the edge of the engine intake, as you can see, as the surface was not at the proper shape. I had to use as well some putty, fill some gaps, and of course using some other technique with some sandpaper that I roll around a toothpick, try to be able to smooth all that sandpaper inside the engine intake. After that I use a mix of grey and metallic paint that I normally use for a Corrugator to paint the fan disc, and then a dark grey kind of anthracite color to be able to paint the interior of the engine exhaust pipe as well. Following this, I did that on the engine intake as well. So we are going now to assemble the engines. So we have to prepare the parts as we normally do, and once this will be done, we'll add basically the fan disc initially, and then glue the two halves of the engine body together. After that, while it will be dried, we're going to add some putty to fill the gaps between those two parts. So for this kit I used some photo etch part as well, and I have to say that I couldn't use all the little parts as sometimes my skill were not up to standard. So what I did initially was to put the engine. Basically there was some panel who are located on the horizontal stabilizer, so I glued them with some super glue, and then I was able to put the horizontal stabilizer on the kit. After that, there are some antennas who are located on top of the fuselage, so I had to prepare them, and of course I glued them a little bit later on the top of the fuselage as well. Now it's time to sand down our engines, and for this, well, I use normally some 600 sandpaper initially, and to finish with some 800 or 1000. Then I put the engine intake, and then of course glue them to the engines, and then add some putty to fill the gaps between those two parts. It's now time to go to the paint booth. So initially I will paint those photo etch part in brass color, in light gray. And I will have to paint the wings, the horizontal stabilizer, and the engine mount in a very light gray. So on that model I had only some picture available on the internet. There was no painting diagram, so I had to use a little bit of my imaginations, because I couldn't see what was on the upper wing. And after that I tried to paint on the different. There was 3 different type of gray that I have to use, so I had to do a mix to be able to paint basically the engine mount and the wings, and later on there is 2 gray stripes basically located before the tail, but you'll see that at the later point. Then we are going to paint now on a very light gray those stripes basically on the tail, and then later on there will be another one, and we'll do the same for the engines. So after this I had to put some covers, and then I will paint the whole fuselage, and most of the underwing surface are in a red color. So I had some beautiful pictures on the internet where we could see the under side of the fuselage, the lower part of the fuselage and the wings, but nothing from the top view, so it was a little bit challenging for that, to have the exact color that was on that aircraft. So after that I had to paint in I used basically the regular red color, the X7 from Tamiya, just straight out of the bottle. Once it was finished, and when basically the paint was dried, I removed all the covers and the paint covers, and you can see that I have those double gray stripe on the back. So on the engine I had some issue. The glue basically of the masking tape mix, and had some influence on the paint result. So what I had to do, I had to use some very thin sandpaper, sand everything down, and to remove basically all the marks, and then I use a paintbrush to correct basically the paint issue that I had on the engines. So I did this for most of the colors, the white and the 2 different gray on those engines. Then the result was much better, and I was able to continue on my model. After that we are painting now the wheels, the wheels of the aircraft, and then we're gonna start mounting the undercarriage. So now I'm painting basically the engine anti-ice system, basically those wings, and I'm using some enamel paint. Basically it's almost a silver color. Then I mounted the undercarriage, and then I forgot that I had my photo etch parts in brass. So once the wheels were assembled, I had to cut out basically the scissor who goes on the back, and so that was a little bit of a challenge, not to damage the part of course. And then I used the photo etch part that I fold together, and for these, to fold them and glue them together, I had to use some super glue. And after that the work went pretty easy. Then you will have a little bit of a paint work on that, and then it will go very smooth. So for these you need to use 2 pair of tweezers basically, will help you out, and 2 spikes to put the glue, and then we'll be able to fold them together at the proper shape, and then add them on rear of the undercarriage. Some final paint touch-up. Now I will paint all these antennae were mounted on the top of the fuselage. At least I had a drawing where I could see that they were in a white color, so that was helpful. No information for the wings, but at least I could have that. So now it's time to use the decals. So I use normal decal. I just use hot water basically to soak my decals, and then I was able to apply them. Nothing really to talk about. It was a very easy decal to use. I was a little bit skeptical at the beginning with the white color because I thought that it will be a little bit too transparent and then I would have some red reflect or pink reflect on that Redwings scheme, but it was not the case, so I was very happy about that. And the main issue I had is the window decals, and the cockpit window came with some different tone, and with the red basically you are unable to see all those details. So some of the window shades were open, and then that gave me a red color for the decals. So what I had to do, I used some other window decals coming from another kit, and I cut it to the right shape and then add them on those window shades, and then I was able to get a proper result. Now time to weather the aircraft and the engines. For that I use the same old technique with the water and the pastel powder with a little bit of soap, and put them all around the aircraft, around the edge, and of course after that, when it's dry, you use a humid cloth to remove everything. It takes a little bit of time, but the result is quite nice. And if you have too much of this, at least it's very forgiving, because you can also add a little bit more water and you will be able to remove all the excess wash that you used. So this is the final result of that SSJ100 Superjet from Redwings Russian airline. So I hope you enjoyed that build with me. If you did so, please give me a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if it's not done yet. And I will see you soon for another kit review and another build. Thank you for watching and see you on the next one.